Here's a full 1,200-word speech expanding on the idea that not everyone deserves access to your personal life. It's written in a Jordan Peterson-esque style, focusing on psychology, personal responsibility, and social dynamics. Life is a complex, chaotic experience. It is filled with suffering, with triumph, with loss, and with fleeting moments of joy. And through all of this, we develop a story, a deeply personal narrative that belongs to us and us alone. But too often, we give away this story carelessly. We expose our fears, our dreams, our failures, and our struggles to people who have not earned the right to hear them. And then we wonder why we feel misunderstood, betrayed, or even manipulated. There is a prevailing idea in modern culture that transparency is synonymous with authenticity. That to be real, you must share everything. Your emotions, your struggles, your aspirations, with anyone willing to listen. But that is a dangerous misconception. Because not everyone who listens does so with good intentions. Not everyone is capable of handling your truth responsibly, and not everyone will respect the weight of what you are offering them. Consider for a moment the nature of human relationships. Relationships are built on trust, and trust is something that is developed over time. It is not given freely, nor should it be. You do not walk up to a stranger on the street and hand them the keys to your house, do you? So why would you do the equivalent with your personal life? Why would you grant unrestricted access to the deepest parts of yourself without first ensuring that the person on the receiving end is capable of treating that information with care? One of the fundamental problems with oversharing is that it exposes you to unnecessary vulnerability. Vulnerability, in the right context, is a powerful thing. It is what allows people to connect on a deep level. But vulnerability must be protected, just as you would protect anything of value. If you share too much, too soon with the wrong people, you set yourself up for pain. Think about the way people process information. We all filter experiences through our own biases, our own unresolved issues, our own limited perspectives. This means that when you share your struggles with someone, you are not simply offering them your truth, you are offering them an opportunity to interpret it however they see fit. Some will misunderstand you, others will judge you, and some will even use what you have shared as ammunition against you. This is not paranoia, this is reality. Many people have experienced the sting of betrayal in some form. Perhaps you confided in a friend only to later hear your words twisted in a conversation you were never meant to be part of. Or maybe you shared a personal weakness with a coworker, thinking it was a safe space, only to find that weakness used against you in a professional setting. When these things happen, the pain is not just in the betrayal itself, but in the realization that you gave someone access they did not deserve. Now, some might argue that this is no way to live, that it is cynical or even pessimistic to approach relationships with caution. But caution is not the same as paranoia. Discernment is not the same as fear. In fact, being selective about who you trust is one of the most responsible things you can do for yourself. You are the guardian of your own well-being. If you do not protect your personal life, no one else will. This does not mean you should isolate yourself. Quite the opposite. It means you should take the time to build strong, meaningful connections with people who have proven themselves worthy of your trust. Trust should be earned through consistent action, through demonstrated loyalty, through moments where someone has shown they can handle your vulnerability without exploiting it. And let's be clear, very few people will meet this standard. Think about the difference between a mentor and a casual acquaintance. A mentor, someone who genuinely cares about your development, will listen to your struggles with wisdom, offering guidance that empowers you. A casual acquaintance, on the other hand, may listen out of curiosity or politeness, but lacks the depth of understanding needed to provide meaningful support. Worse still, some people will listen simply to gather information they may later use against you, whether out of malice or carelessness. There is also the psychological aspect to consider. When you share your problems indiscriminately, you risk outsourcing your emotional burden to people who are not equipped to handle it. This can lead to a false sense of resolution. Instead of taking action to solve your problems, you talk about them endlessly, mistaking venting for progress. So there is a difference between seeking support and seeking validation. The latter can be dangerous because it creates dependency. If you constantly rely on external reassurance, you weaken your own ability to navigate hardship independently. Moreover, when you share too much, you devalue your own experiences. If you tell your most intimate struggles to anyone willing to listen, what does that say about how much you respect your own journey? Your struggles, your aspirations, your pain, all of it is meaningful. It should not be treated as casual conversation. It should not be something you give away cheaply. This is not to say that you should never open up. Humans are social creatures, and we do need connection. But that connection should be built on a foundation of trust. It should be intentional, not impulsive. There is nothing wrong with keeping parts of yourself private until you are certain that someone has earned the right to hear them. So how do you determine who deserves access to your personal life? The answer is simple but not easy. You observe. You watch how people handle the information they are given. Do they respect confidentiality? Do they listen without judgment? Do they offer support without trying to control or manipulate you? Pay attention to how people treat the vulnerability of others, because that is a strong indicator of how they will treat yours. And remember, not everyone who asks about your life is doing so out of genuine concern. Some people are just looking for something to gossip about. Some people want to measure themselves against your struggles, using your pain as a benchmark for their own self-esteem. And some people, whether consciously or not, will resent you for the very things you share with them. Envy is a powerful force. If you share your ambitions with the wrong person, their response may not be encouragement, but passive discouragement. Subtle remarks that plant seeds of doubt in your mind. There is also the issue of timing. Even with the right people, not every moment is the right moment to open up. Sometimes sharing too soon, before you have fully processed your own emotions, can lead to regret. It can make you feel exposed in ways that are difficult to recover from. Some things are best understood in solitude before they are ever spoken aloud. Ultimately, your personal life is yours to protect. It is not something you owe to the world. It is not something you should feel pressured to share in order to appear real or relatable. True authenticity is not about exposing yourself to anyone who will listen. It is about knowing yourself well enough to decide who is worthy of knowing you. And so the next time you feel the urge to share something personal, pause. Ask yourself, is this person capable of holding what I am about to give them? Have they demonstrated trustworthiness? Will they add value to my life, or will they take something from it? If the answer is anything less than a confident yes, then keep your story to yourself. Because once you share something, you cannot take it back. And the wrong audience can turn even the most sincere confession into a weapon against you. Choose your confidants wisely. The quality of your relationships will determine the quality of your life. And in a world where not everyone has your best interests at heart, discretion is not just wise, it is essential. Life is complex, unpredictable, and often full of challenges. As we navigate through it, we seek connection with others, hoping to find understanding, validation, and support. However, in this pursuit of connection, many people fall into the trap of oversharing, revealing too much about their personal struggles, emotions, and experiences to the wrong people or at the wrong time. This tendency can create unnecessary vulnerability, leaving individuals open to misunderstanding, judgment, and even exploitation. There is a common belief in modern society that openness is always a virtue, that transparency equates to authenticity, and that sharing our struggles with others makes us stronger. While there is truth in the idea that deep, meaningful relationships require honesty and vulnerability, this does not mean that every aspect of our personal lives should be placed on public display. In fact, indiscriminate sharing can be dangerous. It can weaken your sense of control over your own narrative, expose you to emotional harm, and ultimately make you an easy target for those who do not have your best interests at heart. People often share too much in an effort to feel understood. They want to connect, to be seen, and to be accepted. But not everyone is capable of offering the support or understanding that is needed. Some people lack the emotional maturity to handle deep or sensitive information with care. Others have their own biases and perspectives that distort how they interpret what they hear. When you reveal too much too soon, you place yourself in a position where others can project their judgments, fears, and insecurities onto your story. Instead of being understood, you may find yourself being criticized or misunderstood, leaving you feeling worse than before. Another significant risk of oversharing is that it invites unnecessary judgment. Human beings are naturally inclined to assess and evaluate others. When you share your personal struggles, failures, or insecurities with someone who has not earned your trust, you give them the power to form an opinion about you that may not reflect who you truly are. People are often quick to judge, and once a judgment is made, it is difficult to change. What may have been a moment of weakness or vulnerability on your part could become the defining lens through which someone sees you. Consider how people interact in professional and social settings. A person who frequently discusses their problems, their insecurities, or their past mistakes may be seen as weak, unreliable, or overly emotional. Even if the individual is otherwise competent and capable, their oversharing may shape others' perceptions in ways that limit their opportunities for growth and advancement. Whether in the workplace, among friends, or within a community, being seen as overly vulnerable can lead to being overlooked, dismissed, or even taken advantage of. There is also the issue of power dynamics. When you share too much personal information, especially with people who have not proven themselves trustworthy, you place yourself in a vulnerable position. Not everyone who listens to you has good intentions. Some people collect information not to support you, but to use it for their own benefit. They may gossip about you, manipulate your words, or weaponize your vulnerabilities against you in ways you never anticipated. Think about how conflicts arise in relationships. In moments of frustration or anger, people often use past confessions as ammunition. Something you shared in confidence, perhaps a personal struggle, a deep-seated fear, or a mistake you regret, can be thrown back at you in an argument, twisted to hurt you in ways that cut even deeper because the attack comes from someone who knows your vulnerabilities. When you overshare, you create opportunities for this kind of betrayal, often without realizing it until it's too late. Furthermore, oversharing can create a false sense of intimacy. Just because someone listens to your problems does not mean they care. People sometimes mistake attention for genuine support. They assume that because someone is willing to listen to their deepest thoughts and feelings, a meaningful bond has been formed. But true trust and intimacy develop over time through consistent actions and mutual understanding. When you reveal too much too soon, you may feel connected to someone who has not actually demonstrated any real commitment to your well-being. This false sense of intimacy can be especially dangerous in new relationships. People who overshare early on may believe they are fostering closeness, but in reality, they may be giving away too much of themselves before knowing whether the other person is worthy of that level of trust. Some individuals may take advantage of this, using the information they've been given to manipulate or control the relationship. Others may simply lose respect, seeing the oversharing as a sign of emotional instability rather than authenticity. Another important consideration is how oversharing affects your own mental and emotional well-being. When you share your struggles too freely, you risk externalizing your problems rather than working through them internally. There is a difference between seeking support and seeking validation. If you constantly talk about your issues, hoping for reassurance from others, you may become dependent on external approval rather than developing the resilience needed to face challenges on your own. There is a psychological principle known as co-rumination, which describes the tendency to excessively discuss and dwell on problems with others. While some level of discussion can be healthy, repeatedly going over the same issues with multiple people can actually increase stress and anxiety rather than relieve it. When you overshare, you may inadvertently reinforce negative emotions, making problems feel bigger than they actually are. Additionally, sharing personal struggles with the wrong audience can lead to unhelpful or even harmful feedback. Not everyone is equipped to offer good advice or support. Some people may dismiss your concerns, making you feel unheard or invalidated. Others may offer advice that is misguided, rooted in their own biases rather than what is truly best for you. When you open yourself up to too many opinions, you risk losing clarity about your own path. A better approach is to cultivate a selective and intentional approach to sharing. Not every thought, emotion, or experience needs to be shared, and certainly not with just anyone. It is important to identify the right people, those who have demonstrated trustworthiness, wisdom, and emotional maturity. True confidants are rare, and they should be chosen carefully. Protecting your personal information is not about being secretive or detached. It is about valuing yourself enough to set boundaries. Your life story is not something to be carelessly given away. It is something to be protected, nurtured, and shared only with those who have earned the right to hear it. This does not mean that you should suppress your emotions or isolate yourself. Healthy relationships require openness, and everyone needs support at times. But there is a difference between thoughtful, intentional sharing and reckless oversharing. It is wise to take time to process your own emotions before deciding who, if anyone, should be entrusted with them. Before sharing personal information, ask yourself important questions. Is this person capable of handling what I am about to tell them? Have they shown that they are trustworthy and understanding? Will sharing this information serve a constructive purpose, or am I seeking validation? Am I prepared for the possibility that this information may be misinterpreted, judged, or shared with others? By being selective about what you share and with whom, you maintain control over your own narrative. You safeguard your emotional well-being. You prevent unnecessary pain and disappointment. And, most importantly, you ensure that when you do choose to be vulnerable, it is with the right people in the right circumstances. The world does not need to know everything about you. Your struggles, your fears, your past, these are valuable parts of who you are, and they should be shared only with those who have demonstrated the integrity to handle them with care. Oversharing does not make you stronger. It makes you vulnerable in ways that are often damaging and irreversible. True strength lies in discernment, in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, in understanding that your personal life is not public property, but something worth protecting. Silence is one of the most underrated forms of power. In a world where people feel compelled to fill every moment with noise, whether through words, social media posts, or endless conversations, silence is often misunderstood. Many people associate silence with weakness, insecurity, or a lack of confidence. But the truth is that silence, when used with intention, can be a profound source of strength. It can shield you from unnecessary conflict, give you an edge in communication, help you master your emotions, and even lead to deeper self-awareness. People often feel an impulse to speak, to respond, to justify themselves, or to prove a point. This urge is driven by the fear of being misunderstood, the need for validation, or the discomfort of stillness. But not every situation calls for a response. Sometimes silence is the best possible reaction. It creates space to think, to observe, and to maintain control over your own emotions. One of the most powerful aspects of silence is its ability to give you control over a situation. When emotions run high, whether in an argument, a negotiation, or a tense conversation, the person who can remain silent often holds the upper hand. People who speak impulsively, especially in moments of conflict, tend to give away too much. They reveal their emotions, their weaknesses, and their thought processes without realizing it. Silence, on the other hand, forces the other person to fill the gap, often revealing more than they intended. Think about how this plays out in arguments. When two people are arguing, there is often a rush to speak, to interrupt, to correct, to defend. But when one person stops engaging in that cycle and simply listens, something interesting happens. The other person, expecting resistance, is thrown off balance. Their words lose some of their power. Silence can disarm an argument in ways that words cannot. It removes the fuel from the fire, making it difficult for the other person to escalate the situation. Silence also gives you time to think. In a world where people are pressured to respond instantly, whether in conversations, debates, or even text messages, taking a moment to pause before speaking is rare. But in that pause, there is power. It allows you to carefully choose your words rather than reacting impulsively. It helps you avoid saying things you might regret. It allows you to assess a situation fully before taking action. In professional and social settings, silence can command respect. Confident people do not feel the need to over-explain themselves. They do not rush to fill every silence with words. Instead, they understand that being comfortable with silence is a sign of self-assurance. A person who speaks only when necessary, who listens more than they talk, and who does not feel the need to constantly defend themselves or prove their worth, is someone who is perceived as strong. This is particularly evident in leadership. The most effective leaders are not the ones who talk the most, but the ones who listen the most. They speak with purpose rather than for the sake of speaking. When they do talk, people pay attention because their words carry weight. On the other hand, those who speak excessively or react emotionally often lose credibility. Their words become noise rather than substance. Silence also protects you from unnecessary emotional turmoil. When people are upset, they often seek validation through venting or arguing. They want a reaction, an emotional engagement. But by refusing to engage, by remaining silent, you deny them the power to control your emotions. This is not about being passive. It is about choosing when and how to engage, rather than being pulled into every emotional storm around you. Consider how silence plays a role in self-discipline. Many people talk about their goals, their dreams, and their plans before they have even taken the first step toward achieving them. But there is something to be said for moving in silence. When you keep your ambitions to yourself, you prevent others from projecting their doubts or negativity onto your path. You protect your energy from unnecessary opinions and distractions. There is a reason why some of the most successful individuals operate with a level of quiet discretion. They do not announce every move they are going to make. They do not seek validation before taking action. Instead, they let their results speak for themselves. They understand that talking about their plans before executing them often drains the motivation needed to follow through. There is a unique kind of strength in keeping things to yourself until the right time. Silence also fosters deeper self-awareness. When people constantly seek distractions, whether through social media, television, or constant conversation, they avoid confronting their own thoughts. But sitting in silence, truly being alone with your own mind, forces you to reflect. It allows you to process your emotions without external influence. It helps you gain clarity about what you truly think and feel, rather than being swept up in the opinions and energy of others. Meditation, journaling, or simply taking time each day to sit in silence can be transformative. It allows you to connect with your inner voice rather than being overwhelmed by external noise. This is why many of the greatest thinkers, writers, and creators in history have valued solitude. They understood that innovation and deep insight do not come from constant interaction, but from moments of silence and introspection. Silence also teaches patience. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, being able to sit with silence without needing immediate answers, responses, or distractions is a rare skill. It trains the mind to be more disciplined, to resist impulsivity, and to develop deeper levels of concentration and resilience. When you can master silence, you can master yourself. There is also a form of silence that speaks louder than words. When someone wrongs you, you do not always need to respond with anger or confrontation. Sometimes silence is the strongest response. It communicates self-respect, emotional control, and a refusal to be dragged into negativity. It sends a message that you are not easily shaken, that you do not need to explain yourself to those who do not deserve an explanation. This kind of silence is particularly powerful in relationships. People who are desperate for attention or validation often create drama to provoke a reaction. But when their efforts are met with silence, their power diminishes. They realize that they cannot manipulate or control someone who refuses to engage in their games. There is wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Some battles are worth fighting, and some words must be spoken. But not every situation requires your energy. Not every argument is worth engaging in. Not every thought needs to be shared. Silence is a tool, a weapon when necessary, a shield when needed, and a foundation for inner strength. Mastering silence does not mean never speaking. It means speaking with purpose. It means choosing your words carefully, understanding the weight they carry, and knowing that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one left unsaid. A person who understands the power of silence is someone who is not easily manipulated, who does not seek approval, and who does not waste energy on things that do not matter. They move with intention, they listen more than they speak, and they understand that true strength is not about being the loudest in the room, but about knowing when to stay silent and when to make their voice heard. Trust is one of the most valuable currencies in human relationships, yet it is often treated with reckless abandon. Many people assume that trust should be given freely, that it is a default state between individuals, and that withholding trust is an act of hostility or paranoia. But this is a dangerous misconception. Trust is not something to be handed out indiscriminately. It is something that must be earned through consistent actions, integrity, and reliability. When trust is given too easily, it is often abused, leading to betrayal, disappointment, and unnecessary suffering. At its core, trust is built on proof, not promises. Words are easy to say, but actions reveal the true nature of a person. Anyone can claim to be honest, loyal, or dependable, but until those qualities are demonstrated repeatedly over time, their words hold little weight. Trust is established through a pattern of behavior, not through declarations of intent. If someone repeatedly shows up when they say they will, keeps their word, and behaves with integrity even when no one is watching, then they prove themselves worthy of trust. But if someone is inconsistent, secretive, or deceptive, it would be foolish to trust them simply because they ask for it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that trust is a virtue in itself, that giving trust freely is a sign of goodness. But trust, given without discretion, can be a liability. It makes a person vulnerable to manipulation, deceit, and harm. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world, your secrets, or your vulnerabilities. Not everyone operates with the same level of integrity. Some people take advantage of freely given trust, using it for their own benefit rather than respecting the bond it creates. History, both personal and collective, is filled with examples of misplaced trust leading to betrayal. Friendships, relationships, business partnerships, and even nations have suffered when trust was given too easily. A person who is too trusting invites deception. Con artists and manipulators thrive on the willingness of others to trust without verification. They exploit kindness, taking advantage of those who assume that others have good intentions simply because they present themselves well. This is why trust must be earned gradually, not given instantly. In any relationship, whether personal or professional, it is wise to observe before trusting. How does this person handle responsibility? Do they keep their promises? Are they honest even when telling the truth is inconvenient? Do they respect boundaries? These are the questions that must be answered before granting someone access to your trust. Some people argue that withholding trust creates distance, that it prevents deep connections from forming. But this is not true. Deep and meaningful relationships are not built on blind trust. They are built on earned trust. When two people take the time to prove their reliability to each other, their bond is far stronger than one based on naive faith. A relationship built on trust that has been tested and proven is much more resilient than one based on assumptions. The idea that trust must be earned is especially important in the context of leadership and authority. Just because someone holds a position of power does not mean they deserve trust. History has shown time and again that power can be abused, whether it is in politics, business, or even family structures. Trust in authority should never be automatic. Leaders must prove their integrity through their actions. Blindly trusting authority figures simply because of their titles leads to corruption and exploitation. Similarly, in personal relationships, trust should not be assumed just because of emotional closeness. Just because someone is a family member, a friend, or a romantic partner does not mean they are automatically trustworthy. Betrayal often comes from those closest to us because we assume they would never harm us. But relationships require continuous proof of trustworthiness. Trust is not a permanent state. It can be strengthened or broken over time. Some people make the mistake of assuming that forgiveness automatically restores trust. They believe that if someone apologizes for a betrayal, trust should be given back instantly. But this is not how trust works. Forgiveness and trust are separate things. Forgiveness is about letting go of anger for your own peace of mind. But trust must be rebuilt through consistent action. If someone has broken your trust, they must prove over time that they are worthy of it again. An apology alone is not enough. It is also important to recognize that different levels of trust exist. Trust is not an all or no thing concept. Just because someone has proven themselves trustworthy in one area does not mean they should be trusted in all areas. For example, a colleague may be reliable at work, but untrustworthy in personal matters. A friend may be fun and supportive, but incapable of keeping a secret. Recognizing these distinctions is crucial in protecting yourself from unnecessary disappointment. Another essential aspect of trust is self-trust. Before you can determine who deserves your trust, you must trust yourself, your instincts, your judgment, and your ability to set boundaries. People often ignore red flags because they do not trust their own perception of reality. They doubt themselves, thinking they are being too critical or suspicious. But ignoring warning signs often leads to regret. If something feels off, if someone's actions do not align with their words, it is wise to pay attention. Trusting yourself means respecting your own ability to assess situations accurately. Building trust takes time, and losing it can happen in an instant. This is why people must guard their trust carefully. When someone betrays trust, it is not just a single act. It is a breach of the foundation that holds relationships together. Rebuilding that foundation is a slow and difficult process. Some relationships can recover from broken trust, but many do not. This is why being selective with trust from the beginning is so important. The concept of trust extends beyond individual relationships. It applies to society as a whole. Communities and institutions rely on trust to function. When trust is broken on a large scale through corruption, dishonesty, or betrayal, it creates chaos. People lose faith in systems, and relationships between individuals weaken. This is why integrity is so vital. The more people act with honesty and reliability, the stronger the bonds of trust within a community. Ultimately, trust is one of the most valuable things a person can give, and it should be treated as such. It should not be handed out freely, nor should it be taken for granted. Those who earn trust through their actions, who consistently demonstrate integrity, and who respect the weight of that trust are the ones who deserve it. Protecting your trust is not an act of fear. It is an act of wisdom. It does not mean shutting people out or being suspicious of everyone. It means being intentional about who you allow into your inner world. It means valuing yourself enough to require proof of reliability before making yourself vulnerable. It means understanding that trust, once broken, is difficult to repair, and that by giving it too freely, you risk unnecessary pain. The strongest relationships, whether personal, professional, or societal, are built on trust that has been tested, proven, and earned. Those who understand this principle protect themselves from unnecessary harm and cultivate connections that are truly meaningful. Trust is not a gift, it is a responsibility, one that should be given only to those who have demonstrated they are worthy of it.